thanks for taking the time and coming to hear us out and seeing kind of the plan that we have for you tonight. My name is Alex Hayes. Along with my colleague Adam Baugh, we're from Withey Morris Baugh. We represent Alan Robinson and the team at Levine 140, which is the golf course property owners. Here tonight we also have Forrest Richardson, the golf course architect. And then from the Norris design team, we have Alan Beaudoin and Rachel Smith. So a bit about kind of how we arrived here today. The Levine 140 acquired this property in May of last year, and they worked hard to come up with our initial plan, which we presented to the community in January of this year. And if any of you were there, I think you know how that went. It was a plan that we were really excited about. It had a lot of different sport courts, multi-purpose trails, dog parks, different open spaces, and we thought we had a plan this community was going to like, but that plan was essentially torn to shreds. And we were kind of walked out of the room with our tail between our legs and sent back to the drawing board. And in hindsight, we understand that. And we made a mistake, and we kind of came with a plan first before talking to you all. But in the last 6 months, we've had a number of meetings with the community, large groups and small. We sent out a survey, as I mentioned, which kind of highlighted some of the things that this community finds are important. There were some surprises in there and some not so surprises, which we'll see. But ultimately that led us to reassess our plan, bring on Forrest, and ultimately commit to a golf course being a part of any redevelopment of this property. And ultimately our overall goal is to develop a plan that will return golf to this community and make as many people as happy as possible. Now, I think trying to make everybody happy is a fool's errand. We understand that. I think our goal is just try to make as many people as we can happy with the plan that we bring forward. And I think the best way we can do that is by elevating the property values here in Cotton Fields. And the plan we have, we think certainly does that. And we hope that you're as enthusiastic about this plan as we are. So a bit about the survey. We sent the survey out in, I think, April of just a couple months ago. And the results, the top two, I think the least surprising part was that golf course was 86% of you said it was a very important component of any redevelopment here. And so that's pretty telling, and it really was informative to us of what needs to be included in any plan here. Right behind golf course was actually security. We've come to learn that Cotton Fields is a gated community, and security is very important for this neighborhood. It's provides a lot more safety than maybe the surrounding area does. And so we share that goal, and going forward, security and safety of the proposed development is going to be a very important component of any development. Clubhouse amenities were another important component. Again, as we'll see, this clubhouse and this facility we propose to revamp so that it's kind of return to what we hear that it once was, which is a gathering place for the community and a place that a lot of the residents would come, on weeknights or after golf rounds and have a cocktail and play cards or just cut it up with friends. Some additional items that we came away from the survey that were pretty surprising. I was just talking with one of you about some of the items on here. Community pool, which is something that we thought was going to be a very well-liked amenity, along with dog parks and fitness center. They were near the bottom of our findings in terms of what is important to you and your neighbors. So that was informative, and as you'll see, those are not included in our proposed plan. And then, lastly, some of the additional findings that we found interesting were, almost 70% of the residents feel that golf is a large factor in home values. Over half, 56%, said that you don't want your HOA fees to be a part of any golf restoration or any contributed to any of the operation or maintenance of the golf course or open space. And then only 18% would be open to paying reasonable fees to access these amenities. So you'll see these results were very informative to our plan. We're excited to present it to you. I think this went a long ways in toward forming the backbone of the plan we have for today, and we were thrilled to bring Forrest on board. So without further ado, I'll let him walk through the plan that he's come up with.
By background, I grew up here pretty much in Phoenix. And we've done a lot of work here, but more importantly, we're working with many, many neighborhoods across the country, actually, on very similar situations where a golf course, for one reason or another, has come out of favor and is no longer sustainable, and we're trying to figure out ways to make the neighborhood whole. And I understand that this is your Central Park. This is your golf course, even though many of you don't play golf and probably haven't supported it over the years. It's still, you think of it as your golf course, and I understand that. So we're working right now in Memphis and Texas and California, Washington, Utah, California, Hawaii, and New Mexico on very, very similar situations. I think all totaled there's about 28 now, or 26 different golf courses that we're trying to help get through this particular problem. And they're all different because every golf course is different. This is your golf course, taken from one of my many American Airlines flights here just a few months ago. And you know what it looks like, so I'll not bore you. This actually looked a lot better about 3 months ago because the weeds were kind of green, at least. And today, today they're not green. I noticed that. So when we see a golf course in this condition, of course, it makes us very sad. One of the first questions was, what would it take to put this Southern Ridge Cotton Fields golf course back in shape? And that is something that we studied for Levine 140. The actual golf course number, if we were to rebuild this course the way it was, no better, no worse, well, better in terms that it, would be growing and the irrigation system was working, the trees would be healthy and the turf would be healthy, was about $12.5 million. And then when you add on to that other costs, you're north of $15 million, and that is not sustainable. People have asked me questions before about whether there's a buyer for this type of golf course, and the answer is unfortunately no. Something has to happen to give it an infusion of capital to carry it into the future, and we don't want to make the mistakes of the past. We had a long list of things that we wanted to accomplish in the golf course. I think the most important is that we knew that those of you that have backyards facing the golf course today deserve them in the future. That's kind of a non-starter on all these projects. So I learned that at the Biltmore many years ago when I did that project at the Arizona Biltmore, is we had to keep the people around the Adobe course happy and still have enough development to pay for everything and carry the golf course into the future. So these are just a laundry list of things. Alex mentioned no HOA fees would go into this, and the list goes on. So this is the NGF study, part of it. They spent a lot of time looking at the competitive golf facilities in this market, both privately operated and municipally operated. And we got a shopping list from them. 9 holes would not be enough because you can't host Rotary clubs and tournaments, and it's really not enough inventory to have a profit sustainable golf course. They made a big deal about the fact that your practice range is, as you know, no longer a part of this ownership property. And so they wanted to make sure we looked at ways to at least have some type of practice, and then combining entertainment. They really thought that this building was a potential revenue source for food, beverage, and nighttime activities with all of you that live in the homes here. So they gave us a list. So we looked at this main question: how do we keep, as Alex said, as many people happy as possible? I did want to put in just a brief moment with, it comes up all the time, what does a golf course add to property values? This was Ralph Brecken, who's one of the foremost authorities on Arizona golf properties, and he's a appraiser, retired now. But when we worked on Vistoso down in Tucson, the bottom line here is that, a $400,000 home was looking at about a $60,000 loss, if it didn't have a golf community. Now, the further you get away from the golf course, And on the interior streets, maybe it's not quite as dramatic, but it's still dramatic, to have a loss in your property values. So when we got into the planning, these are just some of the ideas, and I won't belabor this because, again, I want to turn this over to Norris as soon as possible. But we looked at these pink areas of where we could put housing of some sort and still have golf buffering the backyards and up against the backyards that have them today. This was the plan that we came up with, and it's the one reflected now. We've changed it, I think, 3 times, and we've made little tweaks. We have an option for some par 4 holes, which we heard from some of the avid golfers that, hey, a par 3 course is fun, but we'd like every once in a while to be able to play it with a couple of par 4 holes. Right now we have 18 holes that return. 9 go out and come back, and 9 go out and come back. And then we have 2 bonus holes. So we have an inventory of 20 holes, which made the pro forma very nice because now we can have 100 players with fivesomes. And we've learned at Mountain Shadows that you can do fivesomes very easily on a par 3 course. It doesn't really make any difference whether you have 4 players out there or 5. It's very, very little difference to the time that it takes the players to play, especially in a tournament. So with the 20 holes, we've named the golf course conceptually The Score, which is a play on words. And the idea is to make a very, very fun and sustainable golf experience. And Landscapes Unlimited, who Alex mentioned, they're the largest golf course builder in the world out of Lincoln, Nebraska. I've done several projects with them in my career. But the interesting thing about them, they also manage golf courses and maintain them and take care of them. So they're here in the valley with a couple of other properties, and we brought them on to give all of you the assurance, as well as Levine 140, the assurance that there's someone at the table to build a quality golf course and to maintain it and to operate it. Brandon Walruff from Landscapes has been to a few of the meetings here, and he's available to answer any questions that sometimes comes up. One of the things we hear is, they're just going to zone this and then abandon the golf course. Well, that's not what the intention is at all. They want a profitable venture that's going to last. And again, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. I did want to go over just a few things. We have roughly 90 acres in golf in the plan that we have now out of the 140. So 2/3 of what's golf course now, the dead golf course, would remain in golf use, give or take 2/3. So it's only 1/3 of the total property that is Norris will cover in their lot plan. We have big thing today is flexibility, being able to send people out for 6-hole rounds or 9-hole rounds or 12-hole rounds, and so that's built in to the plan, which is very important. The maintenance shed would go away, the big building out here, and we would move the maintenance over to 59th Avenue along the power line easement. There's a lot of details that I could talk about the course, but it's roughly 25 acres of turf, and I'll show you some example photos. Well, first of all, we'll get to this before and after. So those of you that are on the west side, this is looking north right over here between 59th Avenue and your homes. And so this is a conceptual image of what we would turn that into with the drought-tolerant landscaping and then the little islands of turf. So this is a par 3 hole, happens to be number 2 in this plan, which would be very similar to what you see at the TPC during the Phoenix Open, where you have little islands of turf for the tees and the greens, and then in between you have, palo verdes and ironwoods and desert plants that don't need a lot of water. This is on the north side, so this is hole 4, looking to the west, so between Southern Avenue and the northern property, just as you turn the corner from your north entrance. And so this is a conceptual plan of what that area would look like, just to give you a, kind of a before and after look. And then finally, right out here in the current 18th hole, coming back to the south toward the clubhouse. So the concept is to take that acreage that isn't in turf, and part of this, by the way, is the equation of what the water costs and what the electricity costs to pump it, and what how many miles of pipe is in the ground and how many irrigation heads. You know, one irrigation head today from Toro or Rainbird is about a $300 investment. That does not include the installation to put it in. It doesn't include the wiring and the communications and all the Bluetooth and everything that's part of irrigation systems. And it also doesn't include the replacement of that head going forward. So out there today, there's 2,500 heads, let's say, and in our little plan would be down probably under 1,000, probably close to 800 heads on the golf course. Why is this important? It's all the sustainability factor. So plus, water isn't getting any more free, if you will, in the valley. So we have an obligation to look carefully at the future, not just the water today and what it costs, but in the future. So these are pictures of mountain shadows. Who was anyone on the tour? So few of you were on the tour. About 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we all went out to Mountain Shadows where we did an 18-hole par 3 course up in Paradise Valley, and we took a tour, and I think we're trying to do maybe another one of those or more, and so you can ask about that if you have a preferred date. I'm sure Levine 140 would love to hear. But that was very enlightening because we got to see, here's a little picture of Tom McCann, the golf director. He was at the Boulders for 25 years, and we persuaded him to come to Mountain Shadows to run this little par 3 course. And when he started there, the green fees were in the $30 to $40 range. And this last Super Bowl, $180 to play Mountain Shadows. Now, of course, that's a one-time bar, right? But in March of this year, in February, and late last year, they were getting well over 100 regularly, and the tee sheet was full. So these par 3 courses can be very, very, very popular. People today, ask Larry Fitzgerald, for example. He plays at Mountain Shadows, and I said, Larry, what do you like about it? He said, 2.5 hours. Man, I don't get tired, and I love it, and I have fun, and my friends have fun, and I can play with people of different abilities. Today, people are paying for the privilege to not spend as much time as they used to. So I'm not saying that the big long courses are going away. That's not the case. It's just that we're seeing a trend toward short courses, and this is lining up very, very well. We're very excited about it. They love the 4-passenger carts. This is my favorite thing, is to see mom and dad and the 2 little kids in these. The other thing I see is the 4 guys in the bachelor party who have lost their way for, I don't know why, maybe I don't know why, but they just, but it's fun to watch people have a lot of fun out on the golf course, and they're paying money to be there, and we know their name, they've checked in. It's a lot different than other uses of the property. You all know that when the golf course was here. You had people maintaining the land and out there watering at night and out there watering, first thing in the morning, and you knew who was coming and going. And if you needed to know, you could ring up the pro shop here and they could say, oh yeah, we know who that is. So that's the value. Real quickly, we have in this clubhouse area, the plan is to redo the whole thing, keep the existing structure, but redo it, make it vibrant, bring back the bar and more restaurant space, perhaps add on to this building so we could have more people in a community room. And then this is a little simulator area where we would have some hitting bays to warm up, and at night, there would be simulators in there. You could play Pebble Beach or the old course at St. Andrews or Augusta or whatever, and there'd be a big patio with a putting green, and the whole idea is to bring back the vibrance to this facility. This is some conceptual images of the design architect and his vision of how this building could be repurposed with a new look and feel. So it would have a fresh, exciting look. We're thinking of building a new cart storage building over here because we're getting rid of the one. Keep in mind, that was built for a 36-hole golf course, back long, long ago when there were 36 holes here. So we don't need that big building. We just need a nice nominal building to put the carts in. So again, these are conceptual looks. The simulators, as I mentioned, would be these 6 bays, kind of like a Top Golf bay with couches and tables, and you could sit out there and rent one and have your chicken wings and your beverages, and a group of people could play games, at night on the golf simulators. This is kind of what they look like. If any of you have ever been in them before, they're an awful lot of fun. And then we want to upgrade the entry and bring a spirit of arrival to the whole property. So not only get rid of the big maintenance building, which kind of looks a little bit industrial. That's my nice way of saying it. And make the entrance to the property engaging. I'm going to turn this back over to Alex, and then Alex, you're going to introduce Alan, right? Okay. Thank you all very much.
So, as Forrest mentioned, this is your golf course, and I'm sure there's an emotional connection to this golf course property. And on top of that, I think it sounds like you didn't have the greatest experience with the previous owner of this golf course property. So, with that in mind, Levine 140 wanted to make some commitments to you as residents as we, proceed with this proposed development. And the first is that we would commence the redevelopment of the golf course prior to, or at least concurrent with, any residential development. We would update the REMA agreement, which we'll touch on a little bit in more detail, but the REMA agreement can, if it is amended, can control and include a lot of these commitments that we're making with you. That we put that in writing, so it's not just you taking our word for it. We want to, ensure golf preservation, so this golf course would be, at least 2/3 the size of the Cotton Fields Golf Course or the Southern Ridge. And then we want to offer homeowners, the residents of Cotton Fields, what we're calling a legacy membership for access and reduced fees. And that legacy membership would be no cost to property owners. Would be offered to existing homeowners and would kind of run with the land. You couldn't sell it or trade it, but it again would run with the property and would allow existing property owners to get kind of expanded benefits from the new golf course operation. Because if it's as successful as we intend it to be, there'll be demand here, and this will make sure that you get to use it whenever you want. So with that, why don't we hear more about the residential component? I'll turn it over to Alan Bodewin from Norris Design.
Thank you, Alex. As indicated, my name is Alan Bodewin. I've met some of you in previous meetings, but not all of you. I have been practicing professional planning in the Phoenix metropolitan area for about 36 years now. And I've been involved in many master plan communities and working with home builders with regards to the development of residential housing. And as Forrest mentioned, we have something challenging here. We got to find revenue, not only initially to rebuild the golf course, and he identified some of those numbers, but you also need a component to make it sustainable, to put the golf back and then have a formula so that it carries on year after year after year. And we anticipate that this new housing community that would come in the 4 different areas would be participating in that financially, so that doesn't become your burden, and that they help with that component of making the golf course sustainable over a long period of time. And certainly there's a lot of things that could be learned from what happened previously. We, in the research that we've been doing, have been doing discovery with regards to what the arrangement was with regards to where we are today as it related to that. And we have a great team here with regards to being able to address those concerns and continue to work with all of you with regards to your concerns and work toward the satisfying each of those concerns in this process. So what I'm going to do is walk you through a new development component that would be affiliated with this, and those are represented around the periphery of the course pretty much. And through the survey and through previous community meetings, we heard some things that we'll show you are playing out in this plan, and hopefully you can see that. And so what we're trying to do is get some new residential housing, and that's important for the overall formula because it helps generate revenue to rebuild the course. It helps generate long-term revenue in terms of cost of sustaining the golf course. And it'll be a key component. You asked some questions about the development process here, and essentially to rebuild the golf course is going to have to be some moving of earth activity, and so the golf course, we see the golf course being under construction at the same time of these homes, so that we can balance the earthwork necessary to make the overall plan work. So overall, the first time we came here, we provided a plan that had 804 units to it. The latest plan has 382. The original plan, as many of you might remember, was not a golf course plan. It was a community open space and kind of a more of a park amenity plan. And as Forrest presented, this plan is not that. This plan is a 20-hole golf course, and he explained the reasons why, with 382 homes to help fund the development of rebuilding the golf course. The location of the new residential parcels are placed around perimeter street frontages. And when you look at the plan, we have these gold stars that are identified on that plan. Those are the access points to the new community, and for the most part, they don't mingle with you. And so they're independent from you, and that was a big part.
Let me correct you on that. They all have to go out on Southern and Baseline, and Southern and Baseline can't withstand that many homes being brought on here and that many families coming on board. Southern is a one-lane street. There's already 450 homes here.
Yes, I understand that, and
they're opening up 59.
yes. So Southern is planned to be a 4-lane street.
They're opening up 59.
Southern is planned to be a 4-lane street, and if this development moves forward, this developer has got to widen Southern as a part of doing the development. The other aspect that's happening is 59th doesn't currently exist. 59th would become a new street on the periphery that would connect Baseline to Southern.
Feed into Baseline and we're feed into Southern where there's not enough bandwidth for cars to go down those streets and have years.
If it wasn't, the city wouldn't approve it. So you don't know what you're talking about. Or she doesn't.
If you wouldn't mind, let me work on the presentation here, and I'll take questions a little further into the presentation. So the conceptual lighting plan works to maintain the golf views for all existing homes, as Forrest mentioned. We heard the concept, and Alex presented security was one thing that we heard, and trying to secure the perimeter of this community. And with a new plan, we're able to do that entirely with new segments of development or new segments of perimeter fencing.
Is that brick? Is that brick fencing, or would that be brick fencing? What kind of fencing?
It would be a combination of block fencing as well as open wrought iron type of fencing. So there are 4 different residential product types that we're thinking about: single family detached, single family patio homes, luxury custom townhomes at the clubhouse, and then townhomes villas. And what we're trying to do is create a diverse housing type, because one of the things that we also are able to do is if we have a variety of different housing types, we would get quicker absorption, meaning sales would happen on all those products at the same time, and it would help launch the development of the golf course and try to make the construction period out in the community as short as possible. This is the plan, the original plan we presented that you might remember, that included the 804 units and the park-like atmosphere within the community. And then this is the plan that we have on display, one in the back, one up here, and we can certainly talk to you all one-on-one with regards to this plan, and in particular where you are and how this plan responds to where you are. And so the 4 different housing types are here in a table. I'll remind you that north is to the right in this plan, so it's on its side here. And the total unit count of each one of the product types is identified there. So now I'll talk a little bit, because we've gotten some questions with regards to residential product. I'll take questions at the end, please. So the first one is along 59th Avenue. This would be the patio homes. And so we have 6 images of what we see the character of those homes being, to give you an idea of that. Each time I present one of these, we have the typical lot size. In this case, it's 50 by 80. Similar product square footage is what we would expect, is homes from about 1,100 to 2,500 square feet that would be sold here. And then there are 108 lots that are over there along 59th Avenue. The height would be a combination of 1 and 2 stories. The access would be from 59th Avenue, a newly constructed 59th Avenue. Again, part of the burden of that is on the project, the development of this. Estimated cost per square foot, $232 to $260 per square foot is what we would anticipate affiliated with these homes. And so estimated cost per unit, somewhere between $414,000 and $474,000. The next one, we're going towards Southern now, the top of the plan. These are the townhome villas. Again, characteristics of those.
Could you point on the map to where this is?
Yes,
Oh, off of Southern.
on the southern frontage. So as a example of this, not too far from here, if you wanted to go to take a look, is at the Legacy Golf Resort. There's some of these that Cache constructed, and there's some images here that show you what those are. Of course, you can go directly out there and take a physical look. Now, one of the things we're able to do with this is there's several homes in each one of these buildings that are connected. And because of that, we're able to separate the buildings from one another, more so than the typical single-family residential subdivision that occurs, where homes are all lined up and there's not much distance between the homes. So it's a little different development pattern. With this, we have typical unit size of 1,500 to 2,600. There are 174 of these units the way we have it on the plan. The height of these is all 2-story, but your views are to the west and to the south. So we're hoping that the 2-story element in that location on the property is not offensive. Estimated price per square foot, $209 to $291 a square foot. And then bigger range in terms of unit price, $323,000 to $520,000 is what we would anticipate here. Next is we're going around the corner. The single-family detached housing. Here the lot size is 45 by 110. Similar, our product sizes here we anticipate to be between 1,400 and 3,000 square feet per home. There are 94 units there. The height would be a combination of 1 and 2-story. Again, here's some renderings of what we would anticipate to happen there. The price per square foot, $179 to $209 per square foot. Estimated cost per unit, $406,000 to $496,000. Now, one of the things we know is we have a neighborhood that's to the east of us. And if we are successful with all of you in modifying the REMA, we have an edge condition there that we would have to go fight for in the zoning process, because they don't get golf on their edge, where they previously had golf on their edge. But we did try to be mindful of that edge, and rather than putting a lot immediately adjacent to them, we have a local street there to give them some separation to the first lot within the community. So that's something we'd have to work toward.
How do they enter their subdivision? That was what I asked. How do they get into their subdivision without coming into our street?
Who's they?
Those houses you-
Oh, this particular, yeah. So what we'd have to do in this one is, this is the only exception to acting on the perimeter. So this entry is actually behind the gate, and we would need your cooperation to help us to allow for that access. We could also look at moving the gated entry beyond that point, if that's something that you move it. Yes.
Because we maintain our own streets, we have no government.
Oh my gosh.
Would that become a public street then, and they would maintain that street? We would have to keep maintaining the gate back?
We'd all have to work on that together in terms of what your preference would be, but that could be a possibility. The segment up to the gate could become public. The segment up to the gate could be taken over in terms of operations by this particular neighborhood, or it could be a combination of both. We're open to talk about all those things. So here's a little illustration that shows separation between building. You know, that's the typical single family separation between building, and with this product type, we're able to open it up a little bit and get some separation from building to building.
As I was saying, none of this is executable by us unless we can amend the REMA. And the REMA, I don't think, can be amended by you guys unless you find it agreeable in some form. And so what we've been trying to do is find a plan that can work for both of us together. And what I want to talk through next is, what are the next steps? What would the process look like if we were to go forward? So the REMA is an important document for you guys. That is your legal protection. The REMA has a whole bunch of things in here that give you guys as owners rights and privileges and protections. It also has a provision in there for amendments. It recognizes that the REMA is a snapshot in time, and you as homeowners should be able to dictate when you think the REMA might need to be amended. And so, like all good CC&Rs and bylaws are drafted, they always include some form of a provision to amend it if the homeowners desire. Your REMA document allows it to be changed if 2/3 of the homeowners vote for that change. The question is, what are they going to vote on? And we're not there at that point. I hope that we can find a good structured agreement to present to you that you can feel comfortable voting on. And I think that would include both the golf course plan and the residential plan, but most important, it needs to include the assurances that you need to be built in to legally protect you, so that way the concerns that most worry you can be addressed. And that REMA plan has to include all three of those elements. I'll take your question at the end, unless you want to hold it up, but I don't have the strength to hold Mario that long. And so when you think through what is needed in a REMA, it has to benefit you as homeowners as much as what we're trying to accomplish here. So through that REMA, it specifically says to what you're talking about, it must either be a golf course or maintained as open space. So those are the two things that can occur right now. And so to your point, if no one's going to maintain a golf course, is it profitable for somebody to maintain open space without any return? No, that's not profitable, nor is it realistic. And what Levine 140 wants to do is restore a golf course that still occupies 2/3 of the property, while also creating a opportunity to invest the funds needed to make that golf course, and then also the funds needed to maintain that going forward through their HOA dues. Nobody wants to raise your HOA dues, and I don't think your HOA wants to acquire this golf course, because I know your HOA looked at that at one point and decided that was not a financially feasible option for your HOA, because it would cause all your dues to raise. So what we've been trying to do is figure out, how do we create a product that pays for the golf course renovation, pays for the golf course ongoing, and is supported only by the new home's dues and not by any of your due increases at all. The second thing about the REMA, it requires these provisions here. These are the three groups that have to support it. The golf course owner, which is Levine 140, the HOA board, as well as 2/3 of the community. If I don't get all three of these, we can't do any of this. That's why it's important we continue to work together. Without our collaboration together, we will continue to see what the property looks like today. And so as we read these bylaws and CC&Rs and these documents, these are your words, these are your protections, these are in your documents. When you buy a home, the title company gives you this. You can read it, you can have you can hire your own attorney to read it, or you can ask your HOA attorney to read it, but he will tell you the same thing. These are the processes that are required to maintain and amend your REMA. And so what we would like to do is create a REMA that maintains the golf course use restrictions as Forrest outlined. We'd like to create a REMA that also creates new residential areas as Alan Bodwin outlined. And then create a REMA that continues to provide the protections that this group wants to see. And I don't know quite yet what that structure looks like. I think probably our next meeting might be just about the framework of a REMA. But I didn't really want to jump to that point yet until you kind of see where this was evolving. At some point, I'll have to put together a meeting where I'll be the one talking, saying, these are the things that we think should be in a REMA. Design guidelines as far as what the home should look like. Minimum square foot sizes. Where lots can be placed. The timing and sequencing of the construction of the golf course before homeowners can occupy them. Those are the kind of things that are legal considerations that we need to build into a REMA. But frankly, and I said this since the beginning, I'll keep saying it, unless I can have your support by at least 2/3, it is a wasted effort. We think it is an effort worth going through. We know that we need to make changes to this plan. We swung and missed terribly in the first meeting, but you can see we learned from that first time. And every meeting we've come back, I don't know if you paid attention, every meeting you come back, our golf course has gotten bigger, our residential units have gotten smaller. Because we've been listening, refining. And at the end of the day, I hope I can create, think of it like bumper lanes on a bowling alley. Good bumper lanes that get adopted into a REMA, so that way you have an enforcement mechanism to make sure you're comfortable signing it. Secondly, I have to go change the zoning. I don't dare file a zoning case until I can get past the REMA. And I think any other developer would have taken the opposite approach. They would have filed a zoning case real quick, gotten to the city council, and bulldozed their way through courts. I think it's a foolish idea to do it that way. This community is way too important to take any other approach but this slow, deliberate approach. And so with that being said, how's this process look? We're at green. We need to end up down here in this red box. And all the steps in between are a lot of steps. We'll have to finalize a development plan, work with you guys to amend the REMA. We'll have to present it to the HOA board for their consideration. By the way, before I can go to the HOA board and say, will you vote on something? I feel like I need to go to the HOA board like 3, 4, half dozen times just to give the same updates like I've been giving you. I wouldn't dare go to the board and say, will you vote on something until I felt like it was in a good spot. But I do hope I could go to the board and say, here's where we're at today. Here's where we might be going. Eventually we'll have to get 2/3 of the owners to agree to sign it. Then we have to record it. Only after we get past that point are we willing to do the zoning steps. So by the time I go to city council, I could be a year from now or longer before I even get to that point. And eventually, after we get through the city council approval, I have to go get a site plan approval from the city. It's an administrative process before I can even commence the golf course construction. This is a long process. And if you wondered about like the market and home sales and timing, frankly, just to complete this process is probably a year from where we are today, maybe sooner. And then once I get through commencing the golf course or starting the golf course, I mean, you probably won't see homes occupied by homeowners for 3 years or probably longer. I mean, it just takes a long time to go through the zoning process, then the permitting process, then the construction process, and then the home builders will they might open up for like pre-sales. They might have people sign, but the home won't be delivered for another 8 months to a year. So that's why I say this work will take a long time. But if I don't believe it's possible, I wouldn't be here. And I think you guys have experienced an unfortunate situation with the 4 or 5 different owners of this golf course. And the last one who left it abandoned essentially. And then Alan acquired it in the condition that it is, recognizing though that, and you're right, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. And I think that was the risk that we took. And frankly, we may lose. We may waste a bunch of money trying to do this. But it was a smart risk, recognizing that I don't think anybody else would restore the golf course because the cost it takes to make it happen needs an infusion of cash somewhere. And I think what we're willing to commit is that we will infuse that cash before it is occupied by somebody, and we need that cash from the home builders in order to help support it, and the HOA dues from the future homeowners to maintain some of these things going forward. So we got a lot of work to do, but I do just want to make it clear that this process can't happen without your support, can't happen without your participation, and sometimes we need to be directed, right, corrected, and guided. And I think you guys have done it, some of you kindly, and some of you not so kindly, but either way, we've heard and we've learned, and we're still going to learn, and we're still going to have to. Let me put it this way: I know I'm going to make a mistake. I know at some point I'll trip up, but with your help, we'll get to the right spot, and that's sort of what I'm looking for. So if I could talk about next steps, what we would like to do is present to your HOA board, just like I am tonight. I'm not asking anybody for a vote. I'm not asking your board for a vote, but I would like to present to your HOA board. I'd ask you to please petition them to include us in a meeting. Secondly, what I'd like to do is begin to do another meeting where we can talk about, maybe I just take a bullet sheet and I just write down all the things that I think should be a REMA with your feedback. Once I kind of get your feedback, then I can kind of craft something. And once I craft it, then I can take it back to you and say, how's this feel? What's this look? What am I missing? The REMA has to be our effort together. And I just don't want to make the mistake like I did in January where I assumed I had a great plan and a good idea and got my butt kicked. I think I need to work together with you on the REMA. And I'm starting to, for the last 6 months, I've heard things and I kind of in my mind, I have an idea, but frankly, I need your work. I need your help. So we'll probably end it tonight with, this is the latest update. By the way, I want to say something. A lot of times when I do these meetings, every meeting I have less people coming, normally. You're the only community where I have more people coming to each meeting. I want to thank you for that. When people stop coming to meetings, they stop caring, and it's hard for us to make progress together. So please continue to come to these meetings, and I think we're going to try to do them more regularly because we need your assistance. And then you can communicate to us through our website. There's a little link on there. You can click the email so we can, if you have questions directly, if you have ideas personally you want to share, give us that. This will be your golf course community. This will be with your support, but I need your participation to get